Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Above the Rim Rundown, where we run down all things NBA. I am one of your hosts, Memo, and right beside me, I've got Hoops. How you doing?
What's going on, man? Overall, I've been doing good. Exciting week, obviously. First week of the NBA season. Um, Already some good games. Like obviously there were a few blowouts which were not necessarily the most entertaining there, but a lot of competitive games too. Not to mention, great start for our Lakers. 2-0 start. First 2-0 start since 2010, 2011, long time ago. That matter of fact, that was the last year we had Phil Jackson, which says quite a bit. Nonetheless, we'll talk about the Lakers and other teams a little bit more later in the video. Overall, I've been doing good though. It's been a fun week for NBA back in action. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. For the most part, pretty good. I'm definitely happy that the NBA is back. Following the Lakers and the rest of the league is fun, as always. This is very exciting because we've been waiting for this for so long, and now that it's here, it's been awesome, especially for us Lakers fans at the moment. I guess the one downer for me this week is that I feel like I'm getting sick. So yeah, my throat hurts right now. It is what it is. I'm gonna make this my
Oh,
MJ flu game. That's the goal. Uh
yeah.
so um, yeah, hopefully I do well because last week, not gonna lie, I didn't do well. My start to the season, our second season, wasn't well when it came to the editing, uh, which like if you've heard the last episode, my bad. I'm sorry. The audio was very messed up, but hopefully it's better this week. And if it's not better, we'll be back to normal next week. So that is good. Back in back to normal is where we want to be. But yeah, other than being sick, I'm glad that basketball's back. I'm glad that Tyler, the creator, is dropping his new album this weekend. Things are looking good. So let's talk about some of the good things. If you all remember, if any of you remember our start to last season, last year, we did a thing. We called it the W list and the L list, where we talk about the biggest W's, the biggest winners of the week, and then the biggest losers as well. We're gonna do that right now, recapping some of the bigger moments within this week. So because we're covering the bigger moments, we're not gonna cover every single uh game from this week, even though it's a shorter week because the weeks started on the Tuesday, and we're recording on a Friday. So it's not like it's a lot of days of basketball, but there's been a lot of games that we can't cover them all. So we're gonna cover the biggest moments, and then towards the end of this episode, we are also gonna do our predictions for a bunch of the end of the season awards. But before we start, did any of these games have any influence within your decisions on those awards?
Um, as far as influence on the awards, not really, honestly. For the most part, I tried to think big picture versus like first 1 to 2 games only. Like I will say this, some of these teams in the first 2 games, 1 to 2 games, definitely shocked me a little bit and maybe making me second think our prediction video last week about the standings a little bit. But at the same time, I think too early because it's literally just 1 to 2 games. We've seen a lot of teams have like crazy starts to the season and then completely collapse later in the season, or vice versa. Teams that start the year really bad and then have massive, crazy turnarounds. So all of that is very possible to change throughout the season. So this early, I would say not a lot of my predictions were based on the opening week games, but I will say definitely some shocking teams or players so far. So definitely some interesting games that have gone on since in week one for sure.
Yeah, for me, I didn't let it influence my decisions, but there were some moments, some player performances where I'm like, maybe I should mention this guy as an honorable mention at least. But yeah, I basically made my predictions as if I didn't watch any of these games, and just a preseason prediction, which was the goal. But yeah, we'll talk about those predictions uh, somewhat soon. But let's first talk about the W list. So these are some of the biggest winners of this week. And we, of course, have to talk about the Lakers, which we've already kind of talked about. They won their first two
Very
games of the season, first time in like 13 years since Phil Jackson, as you mentioned. And, there's a bunch of great moments that happened within these last two games, whether you talk about LeBron and Bronny stepping on the court together for the very first time, whether we talk about JJ Redick's coaching and how he's actually coaching. He's actually making this team look as good as we thought they were going to be before last season. I don't. I think a lot of people forgot how hyped this Lakers team was before last season. We were very hyped. We might have
oh
overhyped it. We thought they were going to be the second best team in the league, but there was a good reason why. We had some depth. We had a lot of great players to add onto the roster and re-signed some key players as well. So there was a good reason why we were hyped, but because of Darvin Ham, I'm straight up blaming him. Because of
yeah,
his lack of coaching, lack of adjustments, the lack of a set starting five, I think that's what really tanked the last season. So because we now have JJ Redick, things are looking good so far within the first two games. Of course, it's just two games. We can't expect uh things to be perfect for the rest of the season. But right now, I'm loving what I'm seeing from Coach Redick. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Anthony Davis, who not only is playing like a DPOY, which is what I've been rooting for years. He's honestly playing like an MVP right now. Two games, only two games, but he's, JJ Redick is making sure that we're running the offense through Anthony Davis a bit more. He's getting more touches, and because of that, he's scoring like 35 points a game at the moment. So, well, I mentioned some great things, a few great things. There's still more. Like Connect is looking good, although like yeah, he's not scoring a lot. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing as a rookie. Um, and we have like Rui Hachimura having a great game on the first game. Austin Reeves had a great game on the second game. Basically having contributions from other people besides LeBron, besides Anthony Davis. There's a lot of good things going on for the Lakers. So what are like the biggest highlights for you, or what are your thoughts on some of these factors that have been uh, contributing to a great start to the season so far?
yeah, I will say really good first two games for the Lakers against two quality opponents. Obviously, the Timberwolves, with a team fresh off a Western Conference Finals appearance, definitely. Granted that they traded away Cat and a little bit of a questionable move there still. It's nonetheless a very strong win there. Obviously, Lakers were, I think, for the most part, a pretty big underdog for that game. Most people probably thought the Timberwolves were going to win. Matter of fact, I didn't expect to win that game either myself, and man, did they prove me wrong, and I'm happy about that for sure. And another thing, Coach Redick, man, many people, including me, were very skeptic at that hire initially. For coming from a guy that had no coaching experience at all, aside from like kid youth leagues, and man, he has been. Granted, it is, as you mentioned, only 2 games so far, though, proving all the doubters wrong. And I cannot be happier with the start for sure. Hopefully, maintain it going forward, and the Lakers have a really great season, far playoff push. But so far, so good. And I will say this: the Timberwolves game in the first quarter, it was like pretty back and forth, and then the second quarter, Lakers were able to build a big lead, and that was really cool. Not to mention, as you mentioned, the cool moment where Bronny and LeBron were able to be the first father and son duo to share a court together in the NBA, and that was a really cool moment. Um, and
I'm
then
glad
they
they
had
got
the
that
cool,
over with as well. Like, just get that done in the first game. Let Bronny play for a
yeah,
few minutes and send him back to the G League, which is gonna happen after their road games. So I'm glad they
mm-hmm,
got it over with, basically.
agreed. Now I do wish that LeBron would have hit that three, or Bronny would have hit that three, so it could have been like a James to James assist play. But maybe down the road, once Bronny is improved from the G League and gets another opportunity. But nonetheless, very cool to see them make history. First father and son duo to play in the NBA. Cool that Ken Griffey Sr. and Jr. were in attendance to
Yeah, yeah.
witness a historical moment. So yeah, they had a little moment there. The two seniors and juniors of NBA and MLB um, having a little gather moment before the game. That was cool. Anyhow, yeah, cool little piece of history there. Cherry on top was getting the win, obviously, even more important. And then last night in the second game against the Suns, um, first half Lakers did not do so well, especially the first quarter. They went down by as much as like nearly 20, I believe. And then strong end of the first half, they were able to pull it within 9. And then it was really the end of the second quarter. I mean, no, the third quarter where the Lakers were able to really cut into the Suns' deficit and then eventually take the lead. And then fourth quarter took the man and won the game. And I will say this though. One thing that I did not like about the Lakers this game was they didn't do a very good job with their defensive rebounding. So I don't know if you were watching the game or not, but Devin Booker really didn't shoot that well. But he was like breaking threes, and then the Lakers would keep on letting the Suns grab rebounds. And then on at least 2 occasions, what happened was um, Devin Booker missed 3, Suns grab rebound, and then Tyus Jones makes a 3. Like, you can't give them second chances like that. We're lucky that we won this game, so it didn't matter. But yeah, I hope they clean up on the boards going forward. Also, slight correction. Lakers were actually down by 22, so even better comeback. Yeah, that was a very strong second half turnaround, though. They turned a 22-point deficit to a 12-point lead, and they eventually win by 7. And strong finish. And I will say this: I saw a stat. It was saying like because all like so background story. It was a really busy night in downtown LA with so many events going on. Obviously, the Lakers game, Dodgers, Yankees World Series, and then there's like concerts going on and whatnot. But anyhow, I saw there was a stat saying like for because like Dodgers won game 1 off a grand slam. There was a stat that said like after the Dodgers got that grand slam to win the game, that ironically that's when the Lakers started going on fire and the Suns started going ice cold. So I guess LA as a whole just had like a crazy good um good luck charm that God just blessed down on us. So yeah, that's a cool night for LA to say the least.
Very cool night.
But but great win overall and 2-0 start. Next game is against the Kings on
Easy.
Sunday. I think, or is it on Sunday? I think it's on, or is it tomorrow? It's one of those days. Anyhow, we should win that game. If we could beat these two teams, we should beat those two teams. Or beat that team. Nonetheless, yeah, good start by the Lakers. Good start by Coach JJ, and hope they maintain it.
And I hope so. This is my team. I want the best for them, and so far so good. Obviously, just 2 games, but uh, you know, we haven't won 2 games to start a season in a while. Like this is a nice change of pace. It feels like a new culture now that JJ Redick is here. It seems like the players are actually wanting to play for this coach. So, yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's it for Lakers talk. Unfortunately, we gotta talk about the
yeah,
Clippers because they've had an amazing start to their season as well. Also starting 2-0. They did play the Wizards, so that was easy eats. They were gonna win that, but they did in their very first game dominate, dominate the Knicks by shooting threes like crazy. They tied for the most threes in a game, and they could have actually broken the record if they didn't break the last 13 threes in the fourth quarter,
yeah.
which, I'm glad they got humbled a little bit. I'm glad that,
Me too.
there was still cringe uh, surrounding the Celtics, but other than that, the Celtics have been having a great start to the season. Obviously, they raised their banner on the very first game. They received their rings. Jason Tatum was actually less cringy on the mic, saying, "Let's do it again," trying to hype up the crowd to uh, ensure that they are going for the chip once again. And I hate to say this because I've been talking my shit since the finals, but he's looking really good right now. In the Wizards game, he kind of calmed down, had a 25-point game. The threes weren't being shot as efficiently. But against the Knicks, 37 points, 4 rebounds, 10 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. He's really looking like an MVP caliber player once again, which I probably wouldn't have said that last year at all. Like last year, it felt like he was coasting. It looked like his shot wasn't going in. But now he seems a bit more aggressive. He's driving in the lane more, and yeah, he's unfortunately looking good, and the whole team is looking good. Even with Kristaps Porzingis, Tingus Pingus is not in the roster due to injury, but it doesn't matter when the rest of the team are lethal shooters. So yeah, what are your thoughts on the Celtics? They're looking scary right now. Do you agree?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that anyone who disagrees would be delusional. And it's a really shitty feeling, obviously, as Lakers fans in particular. Yeah, really strong opening 2 games for the Celtics. Obviously, one of them was against the Wizards, so that one was more so expected. But against the Knicks, though, I expected it to be like a closer, well fought game, and Celtics just blew them off the roof from the jump. And yeah, looking like they are still the team to beat, which unfortunately is the case until proven otherwise. Um, Now, yeah, as you mentioned, they could have gotten the record, but then they missed the last 13 shots. I will say that was funny for sure.
That was very
Like,
Clippers. I mean, not Clippers, Celtics like of them to do.
yeah, very much so. It's like their luck. If if there was more time remaining in the game, maybe they would have beat the Rockets record for most consecutive missed threes in that Game 7 against the Warriors in 2018. Maybe, I mean, you never know. Yeah, that 29 missed three streak that the Rockets had, man, that was crazy. But yeah, unfortunately, Celtics have been looking really good, as many people expected. Um, Eastern Conference, until proving otherwise, for sure, at the very least, is probably going to be theirs. Hopefully, the rest of the conference can pick it up. Granted, that was the first game of the season. Maybe next time the Knicks play them again, they'll be better and they'll give them a tougher fight. Hope so. And we'll talk about the Knicks a little bit more later, I'm sure. But for now, yeah, Celtics look very dominant so far, and we hate to see it, but gotta give the credit where it's due. And as you mentioned, Jason Tatum looking really good, like he's an MVP caliber candidate. And once again, hate to see that because I'm not a fan of this guy. But so far, proving us wrong. So yeah, Celtics are unfortunately looking good.
Yeah, that sucks, but it was kind of obvious this was gonna happen. We all knew
Yeah,
that
not
they were
that we.
gonna be super dominant because they're such a well-built team.
Yeah,
But yeah, let's continue talking about teams we don't like and talk about the Clippers. More specifically, the Clippers fans. They get a W this week because the Clippers have now debuted the Intuit Dome, and it looks so sick. Like the wall, which if you don't know, is behind the back or behind the hoops of both ends, I believe, of the court, and it's literally like a wall of fans. These fans get cheaper tickets, uh, because they are like true Clippers fans. Uh, they are incentivized to cheer as loud as possible in order to get discounts on merch and food or whatever. And because of that, these fans are going nuts. This is such a loud crowd. I was watching the beginning of the Clippers and Suns game earlier this week, which I ended up falling asleep in like the second quarter. I was just very tired that day, and that kind of sucked because it
yeah,
ended up being a good game where it went to overtime and stuff. But yeah, when I was watching it, I noticed that that crowd was going crazy. The Suns players were missing their free throws because of this like college like atmosphere. So I think this is such a cool thing to have as a fan. Just an amazing arena, a very high tech arena. I saw a TikTok where it was someone in the Intuit Dome that during that Clippers game, and during one of the timeouts, they were playing the whole stadium was playing a game. Because there's like a gamepad on the chair or whatever, and they were using I think like the Halo screen that they call it to play this
yeah,
game where
they
you have
call
to
it.
yeah, you have to press
Mhm.
like the correct color, and if you guess it correctly, you move on to the next level. If you don't, you get knocked out, and then the winner got like some discount or whatever. This is all super cool. I wish that it was the Lakers that had this stadium. But
Yeah,
Steve Ballmer, like shout out to him. He is probably the coolest owner in the NBA, and is actually like a billionaire that's using his money for like cool stuff. He's not. Well, I don't know too much about him. He might suck. He might be one of those shitty billionaires, but he brought something cool to the city of Inglewood. If you've seen any of the videos around the Intuit Dome, you know that it is very community based. There's basketball courts outside. There's an indoor gym for people to use.
that's cool.
There's a wall filled with every high school jersey from California. It's honestly a really cool place. Too bad it has to go to the Clippers.
Yeah, and yeah, let me. I will add on to that. I agree with you. Really cool looking stadium. Like easily by far the best stadium in the league now, knowing that it's one the newest, two the most advanced, three all those features you mentioned. Yeah, unfortunately, just the wrong team. Um, it would be cool though. Maybe down the road we can go to a Lakers road game, which would
We
actually
have
be a
to.
home game. Yeah, we have to. Lakers versus Clippers. Lakers home game in the Clippers arena. I'm down. Yeah, and
I'm
then
so
we
down.
will. Yeah. Now, granted, the tickets are probably going to be crazy expensive.
I heard the parking is insane. I heard it was $70.
Bro, I think I heard I think SoFi Stadium is also $70. So
That's
if it's that one, I don't know if it's just like an Inglewood thing or what, but like that is crazy. $70 parking. Yeah. Definitely we would need to look into like an alternative for like parking if we do go though. Um anyhow, yeah, definitely would be a cool experience. The parking and the game ticket will be through the roofs, and that's not going to be fun. But the experience, I'm sure, would be like a must experience for sure. And yeah, everything you mentioned sounds really cool. Like playing the game on the Halo screen during the timeouts sounds really cool. A cool way to interact with fans. The fact that they give the fans discounts to root as loud as they can is also really cool. I did hear about that, like a Clippers fan only section. I can just imagine if like randos aren't even Clippers fans, but they pretend to be a Clippers fan for that one night so they can get the discount. I mean, I don't know if they do background checks. Maybe they'll do something to verify, but
yeah, they do some kind of
um,
vetting.
yeah, which makes sense. I mean, you don't want like fake. Granted, like I wouldn't be shocked if they did do like paid actors low key, but yeah, that is a cool idea though, nonetheless. And yeah, I did see all those other cool things like the jerseys of every high school in California. Definitely would be cool if we could find our high school if we went. Um, the basketball court outside, I saw or heard about that too. Sounds really cool. I wasn't really sure about that gym to the fans, but that's cool too.
Pretty sure
Yeah,
there was.
if
I might be talking on my ass, but I think there was. I do know there's a giant screen outside for people to watch the Clippers game from outside as well.
I think I heard about that, but the gym one I didn't know about, but I would not be shocked if they have that, knowing that they have practically almost everything you can think of. But yeah, definitely would be a cool thing to experience down the road. Unfortunately, it is for the wrong team. I don't know if it's necessarily going to help that team win because they're still the Clippers. They're still a cursed franchise. They're still going to find a way to choke when it matters. But at least for the players and the fans, cool experience. So if the Clippers are not going to win on the court when it matters, at least they get to win bragging rights for the coolest stadium in the league.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But yeah, I guess that's enough Clippers talk for now. We will talk about them again soon, but not for some good reason. But
Yeah,
we're
they're
sticking with the positives right now. We're sticking with the positives. So let's talk about the Thunder. And I've been yapping a lot. So would you like to take the reins with this one? I know Shay and Chet had a great debut against the Nuggets. Would you like to talk about that?
yeah, I can talk about that. So the Thunder, very strong opening win in Denver, and clearly looking like one of the deepest teams, if not the deepest. Which the main argument would probably be Celtics, but Thunder looking like one of the strongest teams, not named the Celtics. Um, obviously, first game of the season, Shea puts up a strong performance, putting up 28 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists. Chet also putting up a very strong game, 25 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists. And Aaron Wiggins adding 15, 6, and 1. And J Dub, Jalen Williams adding 12, 3, and 3. So all around, really good balance for OKC. Um, obviously, other cool stuff was the debut of Alex Caruso in OKC. which the box score, you look at the box score and you don't see much, but we all know as like a for Lakers fan seeing him play for us, a lot of what he does is not in the box score because he does a lot more of like the dirty work on defense
Oh yeah,
and the
like
hustle.
I saw this post on Twitter how someone was saying how the Bulls actually fleeced OKC because Giddy had like a 17-point game and some decent stats, and Caruso had like a 0-point game, a 5-point game, or something like that. And like, first of all, like, yeah, Giddy got 17 points, but did it really mean anything if you're the Bulls? Not really. What Caruso does, as you perfectly mentioned, does not show in the box score. He is a defensive mastermind. That's where he makes his money, and it's not as flashy. It's not as cool as shooting a deep three, having a poster, but he's doing the little work, the dirty work, which everybody in the league wants a player like that to do the dirty work. Caruso does that for you. He did that for the Lakers, helped them win a chip, helped the Bulls have at one point one of the best defenses in the league when him and Lonzo were playing. He is an amazing player, and you gotta be very stupid if you think Giddy is a better player. Like, you gotta be new to
Crazy.
following the NBA if that's your take.
Yeah, I agree. Now, granted, if it was like 2, 3 years ago, maybe you can make that argument when Josh Giddey was looking promising early on. But now, hell no. That is a really dumb take. And that's just a sign of like casual NBA, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you know it, casual NBA fans. Um, the ones that only look at box scores and look for points, particularly. And if they see this guy is not scoring, they think he's a bum. And that's like one of the dumbest casual takes that you can think of because it just proves that they don't look at any other stuff. Like, for example, plus minus, that is important. Um, and then there's a lot of stuff that you really can't determine based on their performance if you're not actually watching the game. Because if you watch the game, you see what they're doing with like the defensive hustle and doing the dirty work. Versus if you're only looking at the box score, the numbers don't always show the justice. So yeah, I think that's really what a lot of those casuals are doing. They're looking at the box score. They're like, oh, 17 points versus 0 points. This guy is better. Yeah, okay. Not to mention, because OKC has so much more depth, Caruso is more of like he's of the bench warmer type that helps with the second unit versus in Chicago, the Bulls are just not a good team, and they do have like number one, number two options, but they kind of like spread their depth a little bit more due to not being as good of a team. And Josh Giddey is actually starting for that team. So, of course, he should do more in the box score because he's actually starting and playing more minutes. So, yeah, really dumb take there by the random Twitter hit. But yeah, going back to OKC, strong start to the season, and I expect no different rest of the way.
Yeah, they look great. I do want to note that the Nuggets, we didn't put them in the L list, but they are definitely contenders due to the
They
lack of bench. Their bench unit is atrocious when you have a 2024 Russell Westbrook on your team leading the bench. It's not gonna look good. As much as I'm a fan of Russ, he is one of my favorite players of all time. He had a bad game. The bench in general had a bad game. Um, so yeah, it was kind of disappointing to see how badly that Nuggets team played. But Yeah, I guess I'll leave
Definitely.
that there.
Yeah. And the loss of KCP looking very significant for sure. Um, yeah, nonetheless, Nuggets definitely look like they took a step back, but I'm sure they'll still be a good contender.
Yeah, there's still 81 more games for them to play, so I'm sure they'll bounce back eventually. But the
Yeah.
the
I think
bench
it'll
is
take,
not looking good.
yeah, they got to build the continuity. But I think we can go on to the next team on our W list, or more so individuals now. But I guess we can give this team a shout out too. Um, the Charlotte Hornets. So many people, including us, like in our prediction video last week, predicted this team to not be very good this season, and maybe a little bit better than last season, depending on health, but still didn't expect much. And opening game, they had a pretty impressive win in Houston against the Rockets, a team that many people, on the contrary, think will take a step forward, potentially make the playoffs or at least the play-in this year. In large part was due to strong performance by LaMelo Ball, putting up 34 points. Trey Mann added 24 points, and the Hornets were able to pull the upset in Houston. Um, yeah, and we'll say this: if LaMelo can stay healthy, it's possible this team can shock some people. The problem is, will he be able to? Because he has not been on the floor very much in recent seasons, unfortunately. And when he is on the floor, really good, really fun to watch, really flashy player. So I hope he can stay on the floor. But a lot of question marks for the Hornets depending on their health.
Yeah,
And they did lose their second game against the Hawks, but overall, I think strong opening performance and strong first two games for LaMelo. Um, but yeah, sorry about continuing while you were going to talk. What were you gonna say, Memo?
no, no worries. I was just gonna. This is actually perfect because I was gonna bounce off of what you just said because, yeah, they did lose the second game, but Lamelo once again had 34 points, 5 rebounds. He made nine 3 pointers, against the Atlanta Hawks. He's having a great start to his season. That's kind of the reason why we wanted to shout out the Hornets, in the W list. And once again, if he is playing throughout the entire season, the Hornets are gonna surprise a lot of people. Uh, because yeah, Lamelo's he's so talented. It's easy to forget since he's always injured. But not only is he a great shooter, a great scorer in general, a great playmaker, but with his tall frame, he's a decent rebounder as well. There was times where like his threes reminded me of back when he was playing in high school when he was shooting threes like crazy with ease, uh, with his brothers. So shout out to Lamelo and a quick shout out to Lonzo as well because he's finally played a regular season basketball game, which is the first time in a long time. He only played one game, and it wasn't anything crazy. He didn't play a lot of minutes, but it's nice to see Lonzo Ball play once again, and hopefully he'll be uh, in the rotation a lot more once he's more comfortable with that. So yeah, shout out to the Ball family, except for LiAngelo.
Yeah, I will agree. I was gonna say might as well put the Ball family on the W list. Um, Mello and Lonzo, Lavar too, I guess, because he raised them. Not LiAngelo though, because he's not in the league. Matter of fact, is he not even playing basketball anymore? I think he might not be playing basketball anymore. Rough. Anyhow, overall, W to the Ball Bros that are still in the league. um, but I believe that's good enough for the Hornets. We can move on to the next W, and that would be Klay Thompson starting off the season strong with a very strong opening performance in the Mavs season opener against the Spurs. He put up 22 points on 7 for 13 shooting from the floor, including 6 of 10 from 3-point range. And I will say this: many people thought this guy was like pretty much finished and maybe even washed per se, but he proved maybe not last night or 2 nights ago technically. Now that it's technically Saturday morning past midnight, and who knows? Maybe he will prove some people that the Mavs made a good signing. It's possible. Maybe he was the missing piece that they needed in the finals. But Klay Thompson, I guess, looking like he's adapting good in Dallas so far. Um, Now, Memo, obviously, I know you are not a fan of Klay Thompson. But what did you think about his opening performance, shall I ask?
Yeah, you said many people thought he was washed, and I was definitely one of them. I, was not a Klay Thompson believer. I thought adding Klay Thompson to the roster was actually gonna hurt the Mavericks, but you know, the Mavericks needed a shooter in the finals, and if Klay Thompson can be that shooter, maybe the Mavs will do a lot better than we believed because I think we both thought they would make the fourth seed. Um, I
Yeah,
forgot which. Yeah, the fourth seed. But if Klay Thompson can be the shooter that they need, out there being open for Luca and Kyrie, who will be um, handling the ball a lot more than he will, the that would be perfect. Honestly, very perfect for the team. And as much as I don't want to see Clay succeed because I'm that big of a hater, I would rather watch Luca succeed than watch Clay Thompson fail. So if Clay Thompson can help Luca out, then you know what? I might transition to being a Clay Thompson fan for a little bit. I'm not there yet. He still has 81 games to prove me wrong, but so far in one game, he's proven me wrong. He's had a great debut. I believe this is the most threes made by a Maverick debut ever, which is kind of crazy that it's just six.
it is
Because
crazy. I would have
you know
thought more.
I would have thought more too, but that's mostly because like the game now is a lot 3 point
Oh, yeah.
sh- shots involved. So I think that's why I thought it would be more, but still very impressive start to the season for Clay and the Mavs who got the win. And yeah, I'll leave it there. Um, let's move on to. Let's move on to the Warriors before we do some quick shout outs because the Warriors, is a team that we both maybe controversially put in our prediction rankings right outside of the play-in. That we believe they were going to be the 11th seed team in the West, and so far they won their first two games. Granted, they both were bad teams, the Blazers and the Jazz, but the gap between them is crazy. They won by 36 points against the Blazers, by 41 points against the Jazz. And, not only is Steph doing his thing, but Buddy Hield, who is someone that I kind of wrote off. I knew he was going to score some threes, but I kind of thought he was just going to be another role player. He's been having a crazy start. He had 22 points against Portland and 27 points against Utah. Looking like the second scoring option there, which is kind of surprising because I kind of assumed Kaminga was going to be that second option, and I thought that was a scary idea. But if Buddy Hield could be Klay Thompson Jr. on that team, then I think the Warriors could shock us all and shock us, especially by not being a uh, what's the word? Not being outside of the play-in.
Yeah, and I will say this. Yes, granted, the Warriors have played two bad teams. The fact that they won by such a big margin is definitely still really impressive. And granted, like as you mentioned, Buddy Hield coming out firing these first two games, and Warriors being able to win early, definitely really impressive here. Granted, last year the Warriors did start really good in the beginning also, and then they choked, which was and then they as soon as Draymond went on his dumb antics, that's when everything went downhill for that team. And that was really fun to watch for sure from us Warrior haters for sure. But we'll see if they can maintain it or when they play against good teams if they can do the same thing. But nonetheless, staying in the moment, definitely a strong start for this team. And so far, maybe they could prove us wrong by like at least making a play in, maybe playoffs. But I think for now, all of that is a little bit premature. I do need to see them fare against some better teams before I can officially judge this squad. But so far, so good.
Yeah, so that's essentially the bulk of the W list. But we have a few shout outs to mention before we move on. So would you like to do those shout outs really quickly?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. So, quick little shout outs. I will say, Jordan Poole, he had a pretty strong opening performance against the Celtics. In the first half, the Wizards actually put up a respectable performance. They were like pretty competitive for a little bit against the Celtics. They were up by like as much as 7 the first quarter, I believe. Unfortunately, that was when things went downhill. Nonetheless, Jordan Poole, 26 points, looking like maybe proving some people wrong, potentially. Granted, I think last year he kind of started a little bit strong in the beginning, and then we all know what happened there. So it's possible. It could just be early season success and then downhill from here. But in this moment, strong start for him. So far, so good. We'll see if he can maintain it. Another shout out, Cam Thomas. So obviously in Nets, we many people predict possibly to be the worst team in the league this season. They've actually been shockingly competitive so far, and a lot of it has to do with Cam Thomas. Opening game against the Hawks puts up 36 points on 14 for 27 shooting, 7 for 13 from 3, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 steals. And then last night in Orlando against the Magic, he put up 24 points, 7 for 17 field goals, 3 for 5 3-point shooting, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists. So strong start to Cam Thomas. Nets being a little bit more competitive than you think, knowing that they are going in tank mode with how good Cam Thomas is doing, maybe potentially a good time to put him for sale, and they might be able to get some good return for him. So we'll see what happens there. Um, yeah. So just quick shout outs there. And
Oh, one more.
I
I just didn't add it, but because it like kind of happened recently. But tonight, Kobe White had a 35-point game, 7 threes made. So shout out to him. But yeah, I think that's it for our shout outs, unless you were gonna say something else.
not really. I think we covered all of the good shout outs and the W list. That being said, we actually also made an in-betweeners list this week. And that's simply because these teams had a rough season opener, but then they were able to bounce back and do much better in their second game. And starting with the first one, we put the Minnesota Timberwolves. So first game against the Lakers, they didn't look the greatest. They looked pretty lost for the most part. Julius Randle did not look very good defensively, lacked spacing and size. If it was Cat on the floor, I'm sure the Timberwolves would have done much better that night. And Dante DiVincenzo not shooting the ball particularly well, only 33% from the field and only horrible 21% from three. However, the Timberwolves did look a lot better in the second game against the Kings, where they were able to win a nail biter 117 to 115 late. So good bounce back win there. And in that game, Julius Randle pretty much had a legacy game for his second game with the Timberwolves. 33 points, 5 for 6 from 3. And we'll say this, he will probably fluctuate. I mean, no, not fluctuate. He'll probably have like a lot of up and down trends. Like he'll probably be very inconsistent throughout the season. But and as we see in the first two games, didn't look very good first game, looked much better second game. So we'll see what he can do here long run. But nonetheless, good bounce back for the Timberwolves in their second game after a disappointing opener loss. If they would have lost against the Kings, that would have been a really rough 0-2 start. So shout out to them for bouncing back. Anyhow, any initial thoughts on the Timberwolves memo?
Yeah, I really like we discussed about this because we didn't have the in-betweeners list last year, but we kind of wanted to have it so we could talk about things like this where the a team might start very poorly, um they might look awful at first, but then they bounce back. And I think this will be a story that will continue on for the Timberwolves, at least for the first few months. Hopefully, they get it together eventually. But yeah, seeing how well or how poorly they played in the first game and then bounce back right after, uh, kind of shows that as talented as a roster is, they need time. They do need time to uh, get together and fit well. Um, and I think they're gonna still need time, but that second game was unexpected. Like I'm not the biggest Julius Randle fan as a player. He will always have a special place in my heart as a former Laker, but I'm not the biggest fan of his game. But seeing how he was able to drain those threes was impressive. I know he could shoot threes, but that's not like what he's known for either. He's more known for his bully ball, and the fact that I don't know if you know this, but the Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle are the first Minnesota teammates to ever score 30 plus points and like 5 plus threes in the same game, which is kind
I
of
didn't.
crazy. That Anthony Edwards and Cat weren't able to do that before. It was Edwards and Randall that was the ones that were able to do that, and I don't expect them to continue doing that every game. But this is actually at least a good sign moving forward.
Definitely. And super shocking for sure. Because like you would think that if anything happened, would do that, but I guess not. And what do we say? Very good bounce back, as we mentioned. Not necessarily expecting both of them to have crazy games like that in the same game on a daily basis, but who knows? Maybe they'll do it every now and then. And as you mentioned, the Timberwolves probably will need time to build the chemistry and the continuity before they reach where they want to be. But we'll say the future, I think, will definitely get better as the season progresses for this team. And then they should be at the top of the conference.
So next, we have one other team to talk about in the in-betweeners list before we get to the L list, and that is the New York Knicks, who, as we mentioned earlier, got destroyed by the Boston Celtics. The Celtics were draining threes like crazy. It was unbelievable. Like Josh Hart talked about how he couldn't believe what was going on that day because everything was going in. And, not only were they draining threes like crazy, but they were targeting key bad defenders on the Knicks team. More notably, Jalen Brunson and Cat. They were being targeted and getting scored on like crazy. And another story from the first game was Mikal Bridges' shot. It was not looking good, especially in the first half. He ended the day with 2 for 7 from three. And a big reason why it was so bad was because he had a hitch in his shooting form. For some reason, he was trying to change up his shooting form. Even though he's been a really great shooter throughout his entire career, including from three, decided out of nowhere to change it during the preseason, during the first game of the season. Luckily, though, that wasn't the case in the second game, where Mikal Bridges' shot came back to life, looking pretty normal, pretty smooth. Cat was also doing his thing um, as a scoring threat, and they ended up scoring 42 points together, like combined. So that was good to see because a lot of Knicks fans were not happy to see Mikal Bridges' first performance uh, in his debut game. But once he got to MSG, he turned it around. So, what were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I had seen Mikal Bridges' shooting form change, and I was just so confused. Like, why even is he doing this? It's not like he had like a Lonzo Ball type situation where he had a real weird shooting form and it wasn't shooting well. He was shooting well. So like, if it ain't broke, why fix it? I can't answer that question because I just don't know why. But it's good that he did go back to his roots and do much better in the second game. Obviously, the first Knicks home game was a new unit and got the revenge on the Pacers after losing a game seven that they probably should have won if they were not so banged up. Or a series, really, they probably should have won easily if they were healthy. And they proved that, I mean, granted, the team is not the same as last year's, that we are better than you guys to the Pacers. And yeah, much better second game performance by the Knicks. And strong performance by Jalen Brunson, putting up 26. A strong home opener for both Cat and Mikal Bridges, 21 points for each of them. Josh Hart put up 20, and OG putting up 14. So pretty much all of those star players in their starting lineup that you expected to do really good when they added them, all balled out. And that's what helped the Knicks have a strong blowout win against the Pacers. So good bounce back for them after a not so good opener. And that is the reason why we put them in our in between list because they had one really bad game and one really good game. And I'm sure they'll get better for sure as time goes by once they build the continuity. But yeah, definitely some ways to go if they want to catch Boston, but we'll see. They'll probably be better.
Yeah, and I hope so, so they could take down Boston, but we'll see,
I
I
agree.
guess. But yeah, that
Definitely.
was the in-betweeners list. We kept it short. Now let's move on to the L list, which is somewhat short as well, so hopefully we can speed through this. And we're going to start off with the 76ers because everything revolving around the 76ers right now is a mess. We could say that the 76ers fans are getting a fat L because Joel Embiid and Paul George are not playing the first week of the NBA season, so they don't get to see their stars play for the first time together. We could say Joel Embiid deserves to be in the L list for um, managing his injury to the point where now he's being investigated by the league due to the lack of participation. We could say Tyrese Maxey deserves to be in the L list because so far he is not doing so well being the number one option at the moment, obviously due to the other stars not being there. He's been scoring more than 20 points a game, but the efficiency is not there. Like overall field goal percentage is 29.6. Overall 3-point percentage is 19%. The only good thing I could say about this team is that they're kind of steep, honestly, with Andre Drummond doing his thing, grabbing the rebounds, Kyle Lowry still being a pest. Yubusele is fun to watch. Uh, I'm glad that he was able to get a contract over the summer. So that's cool, but right now, if I was a Sixers fan, I'd be distraught because it's not looking good from like every angle.
I agree. And yeah, like first game, lose against the Bucks, a good team at least. So fine, you're without your two superstars, whatever. I guess. Still lost by a wide margin, but at least it was against a good team. Last night though, lost against the Raptors, which is obviously not good. Now they did play on the road. Um, Still a bad loss against a bad team. Anyhow, as you mentioned, they do show like their depth in the point where once they do get their superstars back, they probably can and will be really good. Um, Obviously Tyrese Maxey has been like a little bit inconsistent here and there, but he's still putting out numbers. So hopefully he can just be a little bit more efficient, and then things will be better for Philly there. Nonetheless, Kelly Oubre had a strong performance in the second game, putting up 28. And as you mentioned, Andre Drummond showing flashes, Kyle Lowry, Caleb Martin also doing a little bit, and Yabusele. Happy to see him back in the league, especially after how good he did in the Olympics in France. Definitely helped for sure. Glad he got another chance. Um, yeah, I'm sure the Sixers will be back once they do get their superstars in return. However, that's a huge question mark of when they will get them back. And as far as Joel Embiid goes, yeah, I do not know why he's like injury managing so early in the season, because like I get you want to conserve him throughout, but like come on, man. Play your games. Yeah. And I think there was a rumor saying like he might miss like the first 4 games or something. And so the fifth or the first 3 games at least or something. And then the fourth game, the game that he would return against would be against the Pistons, which a lot of people are making fun of him for. Like
Yeah, I
he
heard
wants to
about that.
avoid playing. Yeah, so it's like he wants to return against a weak team, so potentially he can put up extra big numbers. Is that the thing? Maybe, but like that is kind of laughable. I'm not gonna lie. It's like your team kind of needs you against the good teams more than against the bad team. Anyhow, yeah, Sixers, not a good start to the season. I'm sure they will get better once they get their guys back, but so far, not good.
Yeah, no bueno. But speaking of Tyrese, let's change it up to a different Tyrese and talk about Tyrese Halliburton, who's been having a very, very rough start to the season. This is a player that you really love. You ranked him high in your list, and I'm a big fan of his too. Very Nash like, but so far this season, in this first game, 15 points, 6 of 18 of shooting, 1 for 9 from three. He got a few rebounds, assists, not as much as you would like, especially within 35 minutes, but it is what it is. It's just the shooting in the first game was bad, and it was even worse in the second game where he ended up with 0 points, 0 for 8 field goal percentage, 0 for 7 from three. What is going on? This guy was showing flashes of stardom in the in-season tournament last year, and now this, like, I know there was memes going around how he shouldn't be playing for the Olympics, and he got an A+ in a group presentation or group assignment for even though he didn't do anything. But I've always defended him because I know how talented he is. But right now, this is looking very odd. I don't know what is going on.
Yeah, definitely rough start for Tyrese Halliburton, and I am a big fan of his. I'm sure he will bounce back, but so far not very good. Um, Obviously, the first game of the season against the Pistons, poor shooting. At least he was able to put up some numbers, like 15 points and very inefficient shooting. Second game, however, put up a complete donut. Not good there. Yeah. And as far as like the Olympics talk, like people saying he didn't deserve to be on it, even he cracked a joke himself about like getting an A+ on the group project that he didn't do anything on. I respect him for the humor for sure there. He embraced it. So shout out to him for proving that he has thick skin, unlike some other NBA players. KD, for example, arguing with Twitter trolls. Anyhow, yeah, rough start for Tyrese Halliburton, but I'm sure he'll bounce back and hopefully do it soon because I am a huge fan of his. But yeah, rough start for both Tyreses. They'll probably do better as the time goes by. But for now, um, work to be done.
True. Okay. One last big story in the list. We're talking about the Clippers again. And this is not good news like whatsoever. This is actually kind of concerning because there was an article earlier this week that um, talked about how this former Clippers trainer is now suing the Clippers for allegedly forcing Kawhi Leonard to go through some quotes unsafe and illegal treatment. This former Clippers trainer was fired for complaining about this unsafe treatment, and allegedly they were rushing Kawhi's treatment, and the he was supposed to be out for like a very very long time, and the Clippers thought it was unacceptable. At the moment, Clippers are denying these allegations, but this is honestly horrifying to see coming from the Clippers camp because I know these players make the organization lots of money, especially Kawhi being the star of the team. But at the end of the day, these are people. You are messing with people's lives, people's livelihoods. Um, and it's a shame that you know. First of all, this is all alleged, so maybe it's not true. Maybe it's not true, but if it is, this is horrendous. This is some of the worst news that I've heard come from an organization since probably the last Clippers scandal with their racist owner. Uh,
Yeah,
but yeah,
certainly.
what are your thoughts on this? Because yeah, this is horrifying, honestly.
Yeah, really, if true, totally unacceptable behavior for sure. Um, like I get it. Okay, actually no, I don't get it. Correction. Like, okay, I guess the right way to say it is like this. I get you want this player to get back on the floor because you want your team to win. But at the same time, you need to think his long-term health, not just for basketball career, but like him as a human being in general. Because if he's gonna have like broken bones, broken like body parts and whatnot, that can affect his like movement going on forward, that would be like really bad. Not just for his basketball career, but for him as the remainder of his life situation. And the fact that they tried to rush him for unsafe circumstances is just really bad to hear. Granted, as you mentioned, it's allegations. It could be false, but if it is true, he definitely deserves like the punishment that he is facing. And we'll say this: if the Clippers, if it's proven to be true, the Clippers for sure probably are gonna lose like draft picks or like get fines and whatnot. It can get really bad for them, especially knowing that they already lost a lot of draft picks from the trade that they did for Paul George sent to OKC. So if they're gonna lose even more draft picks, yeah, the future is honestly not really looking that good for the Clippers if you think about it. I mean, failed super team. Now Paul George is gone. It's only a matter of time before Kawhi is going to be gone too. And then that leaves James Harden, right? If he's going to be the only star on this team, like how it's going right now, good luck. Because he's not going to take you to the promised land. He'll win you some games in the regular season, but that's it. So, yeah, Clippers, I think their future isn't really looking very good, not just on the court, like long term, but this situation. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's not good. But yeah, that's almost basically it. We do have like a negative shout out that goes to Jimmy Butler. Only one game, but in that one game, he had 3 points, 1 for 8 shooting. That's not how you get a big contract, Jimmy. You should shoot the ball a little better. But that's it. That's it for the L list. We got pretty negative there, especially about the Clippers. But let's now move on to probably the most fun part of the episode, in my opinion, which is
Yeah.
predicting the 2024-2025 NBA awards, the end of the season awards. I remember I only got like 2 predictions right last year. I think 2. Um, for sure, the Wemby one. That was an easy pick for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. I
Um,
think I think we got the Wemby right and the Mark Dagnall Coach of the Year.
I
And
think
then
I got that wrong because I was being a
really
dumbass because I went with my dark horse pick, which was Quinn Snyder. I thought he was gonna help the
oh
Hawks uh, have a good
okay.
season, but they ended up not.
I think I picked Mark Dagnall. But do you remember what was the other pick you got right? Was it the 6-man one or
No, I did
no?
not guess Nas Reed at all. I think I only got
Oh
one right,
yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, honestly. But yeah, predicting award winners is tough, especially when you try to reflect on the previous season, because then this season, a lot of things could change. By all means, what happened last year could have been a fluke. Or maybe this player just does a lot better this year, this coach slash team does a lot better, or this, or vice versa plays a fact. Nonetheless, that's what makes these episodes interesting because it makes us think outside the box a little bit on how we want to decide who we think will win each award. Um, but yeah, would you say it would be a good time for us to dive in.
Yes, so let's start off with probably the most boring award, which is Coach of the Year, which you got right last year. I was being a dumbass. I chose my dark horse pick. Sorry about that.
Oh,
But this time, I'm not super confident about my pick, but I think this makes sense. So, for my Coach of the Year, I'm going with Taylor Jenkins. And the reason why is because the Grizzlies had a very rough season last year due to injury. And we all know this award usually goes to the team that surprises the most, that advanced the most, that progressed the most. And I think the Grizzlies will do that and possibly even surprise me even more because I had them at like 8th seed, 7th seed prediction. But if they could do even better, if they could lock in a home court advantage and lock in a 4th seed, then yeah, I think Taylor Jenkins would deserve this award, being able to bounce back from an injury riddled season and come back to basically normal, come back to winning basketball for the organization. So that's why I'm going with Taylor Jenkins. Who are you going with?
yeah. So I will say this: Taylor Jenkins is a really good prediction, and though I did not pick him, I think he's a really good honorable mention. And I will say this: I think that he very well could win this award. The reason why, and I definitely thought hard about picking him. The reason why I ultimately didn't pick him was more so because I just don't know how high exactly of a seed the Grizzlies will be. Like in our predictions video, I predicted them to be 7th seed, I believe. Now, if they do finish 7th, it is a good jump from last season when they finished, I believe, like bottom of the West or like second worst in the West. However, I just don't know if a 7th seed would be enough to win this award if it's like barely a play-in tournament team. Granted, they could do better, but based on my season standing predictions and factoring in here, that was one of the reasons why I ultimately didn't pick them as my final pick. That being said, maybe a little bit of like a bold / boring take. I picked Mark Dagnall again. Granted, like there's a good chance it's probably not gonna happen because he just won last year. Last year he made the crazy jump. This year there's probably once again gonna be the top of the conference, but it's not gonna be like a crazy jump again, most likely. But that being said, if they can finish with like the best record in the league, like over Boston, for example, or at the very least finish as the first seed in the Western Conference, there's a chance maybe he could win 2 in a row. And definitely a little bit bold here for sure, knowing like since they were so good last season, it would be hard to see how much exactly they will be better. But I just decided to go as my gut. I guess more so because not as confident about the other potential options to go with. Like for example, as mentioned, Taylor Jenkins, I think he could do it, but I just don't know how high of a seed the Grizzlies will be. Um, I put JJ Redick as a honorable mention, and
Me
it
too.
could happen. Yes, sir. And it looks like that honestly might happen. I think the reason why I put him as honorable mention and not D pick is just because I don't know how high of a seed the Lakers will be. I mean, knowing these last 2 seasons, they finished 7th seed 2 years in a row. Granted, it was with Darvin Ham, so things could be completely different and much better now. We hope so. But one of the reasons why I had him as honorable mention and not D pick was because of uncertainty of how the team would look. But keep up what you're doing, JJ, off the 2-0 start, and I'm sure there's a good chance he might win it. And then another honorable mention I put down was just Chris Finch for the Timberwolves. Once again, similar to Mark Daigneault, maybe a little bit bold to put him here when they were already really good last year. But I just factor in like if the Timberwolves could like somehow, some way find a way to sit atop of the West, which right now looking maybe doesn't look the most likely, but if they do shock people, definitely consideration for Coach of the Year. That being said, final pick, I will still roll with Mark Daigneault from OKC.
All right, all right. Yeah, just like you, I had JJ Redick as a honorable mention, which would be insane for his first coaching job ever, like real coaching job ever.
It'd
But
be
you know,
really
if you could make those Lakers that did awful last year and with basically the same lineup turn them around this year, I think that's worth Coach of the Year. So hopefully that happens. So JJ Redick could win Coach of the Year, but my pick is Taylor Jenkins. Let's now move
for
on
sure. Not a
to
bad.
thank you, thank you. Let's move on to Rookie of the Year. You know, there were some people that I had in mind, like Reed Shepard. I think he could have an opportunity in Houston. I know there's a lot of youthful players. I know there's there's a lot of guards there, but if he's given the opportunity, I think he'd be great as a shooter over there. Um, also want to shout out a Laker, Bronny James. No, just kidding. Dalton Connect four. When he's connecting those threes, I'm sure he could be in the conversation. He might be like our Jaime Jaquez Jr., like a guy who will be able to just produce right away for the Lakers and just do his job. Just make some threes, make some shots, and that's all I want from him. Maybe that won't be enough for Rookie of the Year, maybe not. But for me, it's Zach Edey, which I know is kind of weird, not going for like one of the top two picks in the draft. But we all know this is a weaker draft, and I think Zach Edey does, compared to the rest of the rookies, for sure have a role, which is starting center. All he's got to do is rebound, maybe block a shot, be a big body, score some points in the post, and do some screens, and that's it. That's all he has to do. And I think if he does that well enough, which he didn't really do well in his first game, he did foul out. But you know, he's a rookie. He will improve throughout the season. But again, if he does the does his job and does it well, I think he will be Rookie of the Year. What about you?
So, a lot of similarities from my list versus yours, honestly. Um, Honorable mentions for me, Reed Shepard and Dalton Connect also. I think these guys will definitely do really good this season in their particular roles. Um, and I see a lot of similarities in those two guys' games, honestly. You know, the one of those white dudes that are code shooters and potentially going to be fan favorites in this league for a long time to come. Um, I put Alex Sarr as a honorable mention just because he was the number 2 pick, and I know a lot of people probably thought he was going to be the number 1 pick initially. So I just put him as an honorable mention there. But as my final pick, I actually also had Zach Edey like you. And I would say this. I think that Zach Edey's draft stock seemed to change a lot dating up to like the draft. Like in the beginning of the season, it was like kind of like moderate-ish. Like people are saying maybe he could be a first rounder or maybe he won't be a first rounder. And then ultimately, as the time went by, he went from like maybe a late first round pick to a middle first round pick, and then eventually a high first round pick, being the 9th overall pick. That being said, even as a ninth pick, I think that he, like, as many people think, will be potentially the rookie of the year. And that's because, like, he looks like he could potentially be like a force to be reckoned with as a um, tall, tall big that can also shoot the ball a little bit. Like, not known for his shooting, but he had like a nice little run at Purdue. And we'll say this: um, his debut was not necessarily the best outing. Only 5 points against the Jazz, and only took 4 shots, 2 out of 4, which is not bad efficiency, 50%, but low numbers there. However, his second game against the Rockets, much better. 13 points on 6 for 10 field goals, 9 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 1 block. Now, if he can like play a little bit more like that and more, I think he's on pace to win Rookie of the Year. Um, but I think a lot of these rookies, they're gonna have like a lot of inconsistencies and up and downs because it's normal for rookies like to grow adapted to the big leagues after dominating in college. It's not going to be as easy once they play bigger, faster, stronger players in the pros. So, end result, I do believe Zach Edey will take the Rookie of the Year.
All right, so we agree there. Let's see about this next one, which is Sixth Man of the Year. And I'm going to go with the man that should have won it last year, Malik Monk. And know there's an argument where he probably might not win it since he's not going to have as much touches with DeMar DeRozan there. He's not going to be utilized as much during clutch moments because, again, DeMar DeRozan there. But this man is a bucket from the bench. He is the perfect spark plug for the team. And again, I'm kind of butthurt for him that he didn't win the award, even though Nasri does deserve it. But yeah, I'm gonna root for him. I'm gonna speak it into existence. He will win Sixth Man of the Year. And my second place, I guess. My only honorable mention was Dante DiVincenzo, who has shown last year that he could be a spark plug as well, trading threes like crazy. And, as much as he wants his minutes, he wants to be a starter. It's not going to happen if, we have Conley and Anthony Edwards as the starting guards. So I think if he accepts his role and uh, play his hardest, he does have for sure a chance to win Sixth Man of the Year. It would be the second time a Timberwolf would win this award within the last 2 years, which would be cool. But yeah, I'm rooting for Malik Monk here.
For sure, and not a bad pick. Definitely one of my notable mentions for sure. Um, that being said, I didn't actually pick Malik Monk as my official winner. I did have him as an honorable mention. So I'll start with my honorable mentions. Um, so one honorable mention I have is the defending Sixth Man of the Year, Naz Reid. Now, obviously, did big things for the Timberwolves last year coming off the bench, and I expect no different this year. And if he keeps it up, I think there's a good chance he defends his title. Um, Next, as my honorable mention, I put Alex Caruso on the list. Um, Strong ad for OKC there. And as mentioned earlier, AC does a lot of the dirty work for every team that he plays for. And a lot of what he does is just not shown in the box score. Um, and casuals will look at the box score and think like this guy doesn't do much. Completely mistaken. This guy does a lot that is just not shown on a box score. So definitely worthy of a six-man mention, I think, knowing how much this guy does as an impact. That being said, Malik Monk as my honorable mention. Now, I think that for sure he could have won it last year. Maybe should have won it last year. Um, I guess my only question is, I don't know about like the status of the Kings per se. Like, granted, like it doesn't really matter. Like the Kings could be a bad team, and he could still put up really big numbers, and he could still win this award. Um, and I think there's a good chance he can. But ultimately, I actually picked Dante DiVincenzo to win this award. And I think the reasoning for me picking him was because I think that he is going to do wonders for this team off the bench. Now, losing Cat was really big, but I think their biggest gain from doing the trade, despite the big loss of Cat, was getting Dante DiVincenzo.
I
Not
agree.
Julius, yeah, not Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo. And as we've seen already, this guy has been showing his impact. Granted, he has not shot the ball the best to start the season. I'm sure he'll get his stroke going sooner rather than later. But doing all the other stuff, like his defense, his hustle plays, um, yeah, I think this is a good ad for this team. And granted, like he has done good for other contenders in the past. Obviously, starting his career in Milwaukee, and then um, he helped contribute to the Warriors. Unfortunately, the year when they didn't win the championship, but still did good wonders to helping them get that far. And then last year was the Knicks, took them to as far. In huge part was because of what Dante did. So I think that him being an addition to the Timberwolves was huge. And that being said, I have him as the Sixth Man of the Year final pick winner.
Good pick, honestly.
Thank
Okay. Next award we're gonna talk about is most improved player. This was kind of hard for me. It was hard to try to figure out who would be the most improved player. Uh, I thought about Mobley because we've been wanting to see him develop an offensive bag more and more, and if he does that, then I think that would be enough to push him into the not six man, most improved award stratosphere. And so far so good. He's been looking good so far, but ultimately for me, I am picking Jalen Williams, J Dubs. And the reason why is because I think he is gonna, uh, hopefully, he's gonna become the second guy on the team. I know in the first game, he was kind of playing third fiddle because Chet played like the second guy. Honestly, debatably, you could have said he was the best man on the floor that game. But I do think Jalen Williams will be the number two guy, especially on the offensive side of things. I think he's going to continue improving and up his points per game, which is definitely a big deal for this award if you improve that. I think he averaged like 18, 19 points last year. If he could get to the 24, 25 mark and make his first All-Star game as well, I think that's enough to push him over the edge and win this award. But all those things need to happen in order for him to win this award. If that doesn't happen, then honestly, who knows who will win this award? It's always a surprise. Like nobody knew Kobe White was gonna be in the race last year, but he was. Um, but yeah, that's my pick. What about you?
you. Yeah. So first off, good pick. We'll say definitely a candidate that I actually also picked, by the way. But yeah. So to let me just go dive in. So I picked J Dub to win this award also because I think that he is gonna do wonders with OKC as a top seed in the West and potentially the maybe the team to win it all later on. That being said, obviously last year J Dub made a really big leap. I think that he can make an even bigger leap for sure. Just constantly making strides, showing a lot of promise. I think is only going to get better from here. And for the fact that he's going to be playing for a contender, I think it's going to even more stand out because they're going to be getting a lot of the national spotlight. So that's why I believe J-Dub will win the award at the end. But a few honorable mentions. First one, Jalen Johnson on the Hawks. He had a really good season last year. A lot of cool highlight plays too. I mean, obviously had that one crazy dunk on Austin Reeves. Although it was against the Lakers, nonetheless a really cool dunk. That being said, he was really good last season. I can for sure see him make a major leap this season and get even better. So that is why I put him on this list. I put Evan Mobley also in the sense that if he can stay on the floor, improve his defense even more, which would be crazy because he's already really good at defense, and if he could somehow, some way, improve like his shooting a little bit, maybe like get like a little bit of 3-point shot, or at least like mid range get a little bit better, there's a chance that he could potentially for sure be in the running for this award. But the last pick I put for honorable mention for most improved, I put Scoot Henderson just because he had a very lackluster rookie season. That being said, if you didn't have a really good season last year, there's a chance you can do really good this year, have a breakout, and then you'll be in the running for this award. I think there's a chance that could happen for Scoot. A lot of times it comes where the rookie does really good, and then in the second year they have the sophomore slump. There's a chance, I think, for him, maybe it was a rookie year slump and then a sophomore year breakout. It's possible. I don't know how confident I am with this happening, knowing like Trailblazers not going to be a good team. But actually, if anything, maybe that will free up more opportunities for him to be a breakout because the rest of the team is so bad. So that being said, I think Scoot Henderson for sure worthy of honorable mention. But at the end, I got to pick Jalen Williams, aka J-Dub, to win this award.
Great pick. I definitely agree. Let's move on now to what's the next one? The next one is Clutch Player of the Year, a newer award that a lot of people don't like, uh, but we're gonna try to predict anyways. And I had a few honorable mentions. Steph will always be in conversation. I think Jalen Brunson will as well. We all know he's the number one guy there, so I think the ball will be in his hands during clutch moments. Luka Doncic has had a lot of clutch moments throughout his career. Has some great clutch moments last year. Even had one of like the best like uh actually no, I think I'm mixing that up with someone else. But anyways, he had some great clutch moments last year. Um including in the finals, in the playoffs. But ultimately I am going with Anthony Edwards. Honestly, it was hard to choose. Like, you can't really predict who was going to score a lot in the clutch because you can't predict who will be in a lot of clutch moments. But I just know that the team will have their inconsistencies. They will have their close games because of that. And we all know that Anthony Edwards is the number one guy for the Timberwolves. So the ball will be in his hands for sure. And I'm sure he is going to have some clutch moments this year because of that. So that's why I'm going with Anthony Edwards. But if you want to argue anybody else I mentioned or not mention, it's honestly like free for all. You could literally pick anybody, and uh, it might be the right answer. So we'll see. But I'm going with Anthony Edwards. What about you?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, this award is kind of hard to predict because like it's hard to predict which teams will be in a lot of clutch game situations. or which teams would need players to play hero ball more often. You name it. Um, at the end, I decided to pick Luka just because I feel like there's a chance maybe the Mavericks will be in a lot of tight games with the tough competition, and then in turn, maybe he will need to show his heroics. And that being said, I think that's where he will deliver. In the past, obviously, Luka has had a lot of clutch performances with clutch game winners. He had two clutch game winners against Boston, two separate years. One was in the 2020-21 season, and then the other was in the 2021-22 season. Unfortunately, we weren't able to see those game winners against them last year. That would have been cool, but nonetheless, he has had, and he also had some cool game winners. One more I forgot that was probably his most impressive one was that falling away three against the Grizzlies in 2021.
Yeah, that was fire.
Yeah, that was really cool. He was like completely off balance. Somehow, some way, found a way to make it floating. Very cool. Um, Nonetheless, it's hard to predict the teams that will be in that situation. But at the end, I pick Luka to win it. So that being said, honorable mentions. First one, Steph Curry. Um, which this one is like more so looking at like abilities, accolades, you name it. So no, obviously in the playoffs, Steph has not necessarily been very good in clutch situations, but in the regular season, he has been pretty clutch in making good, really good shots in clutch situations. And we don't know like how many close games that will go down to the wire like that the Warriors will be in, but who knows? Maybe there will be in a lot of close competitive games, and that will free up opportunities for Steph to go in clutch situations, and we'll see if he will break through. But I think definitely worthy for sure for Steph to be in the conversation. Um, Another one, I put Damian Lillard on this list. I don't know how many like per se clutch game situations will be needed for the Bucks like that. But let's say the Bucks are down by like three with 5 seconds left. Guarantee you they will go to Dame over Giannis, for example, to shoot a three. Now, granted, they could maybe go to like Chris Middleton per se as like a second option if he is healthy and on the floor. But I would be much more confident in Dame's ability, knowing that he is an elite shooter and has had plenty of clutch situations in the past. He last season did not look like the same Dame as he was in Portland, but hopefully after continuity and a full training camp, he does better and is improved back again to his old ways this year. And then my last honorable mention, Jalen Brunson, like you mentioned. Knicks probably will be in a lot of close games this year. Potentially, that will give opportunities where they will need a clutch shot. And Jalen Brunson, being the best player on the team, he is for sure going to be one of the top options to attempt that game-winning or game-tying shot. That being said, definitely Jalen Brunson worthy of being on this list. But at the end of the day, I pick Luka as my winner for Clutch Player of the Year.
Definitely not a bad pick. That's for sure. Okay, we're getting towards the end. Let's go talk about Defensive Player of the Year. And my pick is gonna be the exact same pick I made last year, even though I was wrong. I'm gonna do it again because I want this to happen. I think this needs to happen, and I'm gonna speak it into existence. Anthony Davis. I think Anthony Davis will be uh, Defensive Player of the Year. He's been one of the best, if not the best defender in the league for years now. It's just that the Lakers have not been one of the top defensive teams, but that possibly might happen if they keep improving this year. It's looking good so far. Hopefully they keep it up so that and improve their defensive abilities in order to help Anthony Davis finally win a DPOY. Obviously, the obvious choice here, one of my honorable mentions, is Victor Wembanyama. I think everybody believes he's gonna win this award. I think the betting odds is saying that he's gonna win this by a landslide. He was second place last year. He talked about how he was gonna let Rudy Gobert win this one because he's gonna win all of the other DPOYs moving forward. But let's not forget to mention that throughout the history of this award, at least for the most part, you have to have an elite defensive team in order to win this award. At least that's what's been going on. And that's what prevented Anthony Davis from winning this award. Even though he should have won, like possibly like when Marcus Smart won it. Like he only won it because Boston was the best defense in the league. Debatably, he wasn't even the best defender. It could have been Time Lord that could have won this award instead of Marcus Smart. Uh, that is definitely a debate that could be had. So I would be very angry if Victor Wembanyama wins this award, even though he is an incredible defensive player. I would be very pissed if he wins if the Spurs are not a great defensive team, which is probably what's gonna happen. Like I don't think this team is gonna be great defensively. I think this team is gonna suck. So if Victor still ends up winning this award in his second season with a bad defensive team, then yeah, I would be pissed because then why haven't we given this award to Anthony Davis already? Um, but yeah, still he's gonna be an honorable mention. So will Bam. I'm sure Giannis will be in the conversation. Chet, Mobley, these are all guys that are great defenders. But I'm going with my guy, Anthony Davis.
Okay, good pick for sure. I like it, and I hope it happens. Knowing we are Lakers fan. That being said, unfortunately for my pick, I am gonna have to go with the majority that what other people think, and that would be Victor Wembanyama. And it's just simply due to the fact that like his like defensive numbers are so crazy last season. I can only imagine he'll do it again. And granted, his height is the major reason why. Like averaging 2 or 3 blocks per game, whatever it was, is crazy. Now, granted, with his height, he probably should do that. You would argue, but you got to execute, and man, did he do that?
To be
And I
fair,
think
he
go
averaged
ahead.
three. He averaged 3.6 blocks, so almost 4 blocks a game last year.
Oh yeah, even more. Yeah, so crazy stuff for sure. So to average damn near 4 blocks a game is insanity for sure. Even if you are of that high, like yeah, it's crazy stuff. Which is why I pick him to win this award. I think that he's only gonna be just as good, if not better, and it's gonna be tough to top that. Um, that being said, though, he's gonna have competition without a doubt. And starting with Anthony Davis, AD, I think that like as we mentioned earlier, he is playing like a potential MVP candidate so far in these first 2 games. Phenomenal. And his defense has also been really great. Stay healthy, keep that up, and there is a good chance he could finally break his um, unfortunate streak of getting robbed from winning this award. And as Lakers fans, we certainly hope so. And I think there's a good chance it can happen as long as he's on the floor. That being said, other options, Bam for sure. The elite defender always does that throughout his time in the league and expecting no difference. Just gotta stay on the floor. And then Chet, definitely similar body build to Wemby. So definitely has the abilities to also win this award. Not quite as good as Wemby, still really good though. And for sure, honorable mention, playing for OKC, top contender. And though I didn't add him on my list initially just because I have a lot of guys already, I will say your mention of Evan Mobley for sure worthy because he is for sure a really good defensive player. And quite honestly, all of these guys we mentioned, I think do have a chance. Like, I don't know if there would be a per se clear cut favorite. I mean, Wemby probably would be the favorite, but I wouldn't say it's like crazy lead over these other guys. So I think any of these guys have a chance to potentially win it. But at the end, I will pick Victor Wembanyama to win this award.
Okay. The safe pick, but probably the right pick. Okay, we got one last big award to talk about before we do one last prediction. And the award is of course the MVP award. And I think this is the year where Jokic will finally stop winning an MVP. He's won 3 of the last 4 MVPs. He's very talented, could continue being the greatest player in the league. But I think due to voter fatigue and due to the fact that his team might not be as good as the past few years, I think he's not going to win it, even though he could be an honorable mention. And some of my other honorable mentions include Giannis for always being one of the best players in the league. He secretly had like his best season last year, debatably better or just as good as his MVP seasons. And another honorable mention is Shea, which is definitely a favorite because he's gonna be the best player on the best team, at least in the West. I'll also throw in Jason Tatum in there as well, best player in the best team, probably in the entire league, but for sure in the East. But I am going with Luka Doncic. I think this is finally the year he's gonna win it. He's proven that he is talented enough to take a team to the finals, and I think that will help the narrative. And I think if this Mavs team is really good, like a top 4 seed, top 3 seed at least, I think he'll win it. I think because the biggest reason why he hasn't won it, besides Jokic being so dominant, is because the Mavs haven't been a very high seed. They've had good seedings before, but not a super high seed. And the West is competitive this year, but if Klay Thompson proves me wrong, if the Mavs continue being a defensive force, and Kyrie is uh, Luka's Robin, then I think this team will improve, and that alone will win him the MVP because he plays like an MVP. He nearly averaged a 35-point triple double throughout the entire season last year. He was the basically the best player in the world last year, but he didn't get the MVP. He wasn't even second place. I think he was third, right behind Shea, who is talented and everything, but I think he's not in the same level as Luca. As great as he is, I don't think he's as an elite of a player. I think Luca is a generational player, while Shea is just a really, really insanely good player on a really good team. So no disrespect to Shea, but I think this will be Luca's year to win it, and it would be weird if Shea wins an MVP before Luca, since Luca's been playing like an MVP for like 5 years now, and Shea's been playing like an MVP for like 1 year. This is like last season was like the first time, or maybe the second time he was first team All NBA. Luca's been first team All NBA since his sophomore year. He's again been one of the best players of all time within his short time span within the league. It's his year to win the MVP. I think it will be outrageous if he doesn't win the MVP especially if the Mavs are really, really good. If they're bad, then I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't win it, but I think this will be his year.
For sure. And that being said, I actually agree with you. I think that Luka will win this MVP this year, and in large part due to the fact that I think that the Mavs will continue to do really good this season and do really special things. Still, in large part due to Luka, generational talent, as you mentioned, has been playing elite pretty much since his sophomore season, and unfortunately, he was not able to win this award a lot of times due to whether because of Nikola Jokic doing so good in his facets of the game, or the Mavs just not being good enough as a team. That being said, this season, I think there's a good chance if the Mavs can take the next step, maybe, or at least be a reasonable range to where they were last season, maybe, then Luka will be able to get over the hump and win it this year. And not to mention, if Luka makes yet another leap and does even more amazing than he already does, then there's a good chance that he could even get boosted further. But that being said, I think that it's hard not to pick Luka because he has been doing so great for so long. And I wouldn't necessarily say robbed because of how good those other players were, like Jokic and Embiid that one year, but unfortunately unfavored due to those other players that were just happened to be a little bit better. But I think this is the year he will finally break through. That being said, honorable mentions, I actually have the exact same honorable mentions as you. Shea, Jokic, and Giannis. So for Shea, I think he's going to be really good this season for a really good team that probably will have a better record than the Mavs. But as you mentioned, it would be crazy if Shea got an MVP before Luka, especially knowing that Luka has been doing his thing for a longer time than Shea has. Because Shea has been always really good, but he really broke out last season to the MVP type for him. Versus the previous years before that, he was all-star talent, but not necessarily breakout MVP candidate. That being said, I think he will be in the running for the MVP again, but it would be crazy if he did win before Luka. I completely agree with you on that thought. That being said, Jokic, obviously, he has won two or well, no, he won 3 MVPs, correct? Right? Yeah. So he's won 3 MVPs, 3 of the last 4, and has been pretty much the best player in the league for at least the last 2 seasons. And then from there on, it was arguable between him, Giannis, and so forth. That being said, there's going to be a really good chance he will be in the running again, especially knowing that Denver will be a good team still. It's probably going to take a step back, but definitely going to be still top of the conference. So Jokic, definitely another worthy candidate once again. Next, Giannis. So the thing about Giannis is he's always going to be one of the top most fun. Well, I don't know. You could argue maybe not the most fun because run and dunk man, but I still enjoy watching the guy play because he's good. Not as much because of his offense as it is because of his defense, his ball skills. Though his ball skills is not crazy, it is sometimes fun to see him dribble or slight Euro step a little bit. Yeah, I think that Giannis, he's definitely going to still, for sure, be one of the top players of the league. It's more so, I guess, a question about how good the Bucks will be. They'll probably still be at the top of the conference. It's just a question what exact seed. But if they can be top 3 and he has a really great season, then good chance he will for sure be in the MVP running once again. But at the end of the day, I gotta still stick and stay with Luka as the final pick for MVP.
All right. I'm glad we could agree there. Now, those are all the end of the season awards, but just like last year, we want to predict the the finals, basically, who will be in the finals and who will win a finals MVP, etc. And I think this year is going to be pretty obvious. I know uh, both conferences are pretty stacked when it comes to like their best teams, but I think it's obvious that the Celtics are gonna win it in the East and make it to the finals again. And there could be more conversation on the West. I think that one's more up in the air. But at the end of the day, I do think the Thunder are gonna be the best team and prove it in the finals in the playoffs this time and reach the finals. And I'm going with the bold pick because I don't want to talk the other result into existence. So I am going with the Thunder winning the championship and Shea winning Finals MVP. That is my prediction on how the end of the season is gonna end. I was definitely wrong last year, but yeah, I think I said that the Nuggets and the Bucks were gonna face each other. I was wrong, but hopefully I'm right this year, and hopefully the Celtics will win. But yeah, what do you think? What is your prediction?
So, actually, I have the same pick as you. Um, I got OKC beating the Celtics in 7 on the road. I think that is bold, especially if they don't have home court advantage and winning it on the road. But I'm gonna say this though. Okay, if they finish, how about this? If OKC finishes with a better record than the Celtics, I think it's still gonna go 7, and they would win Game 7 at home. Probably Boston will have a better record, so then I make that prediction. But I would say this though. I think probably what would happen if, let's say, Boston doesn't have home court advantage is going to be two teams split the 2 games in Boston. 2 teams split the 2 games in OKC. It's going to be 2-2. And then I think from there, my prediction is going to be Celtics win Game 5 at home. OKC wins Game 6 at home. And then Game 7 is going to be a complete nail biter going down to the wire. And I'm going to say at the very end, OKC is going to clutch up and Boston is going to miss some shots. Tatum is going to miss a big shot. And then ultimately, OKC pulls away and wins their first championship in franchise history.
That was
I think
very
that would be
detailed.
I think that would be a really cool storybook ending and a really cool way to win a first final for sure for a franchise that hasn't won before. That is a little bit of me fantasizing and what I think would be really cool. But low key, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. I think it would be very competitive, and I do think it would go 7. But I am going to go bold, and I'm going to pick OKC in the upset, if you want to call it an upset. For all we know, it might not be an upset. Maybe OKC will be the better team by the end of the season. But I think Thunder over Celtics in 7, Shea winning Finals MVP, and definitely going to be close and down to the wire. I think it's going to be a very cool finish for OKC winning their first championship.
Yeah, I totally agree. This will for sure be a very competitive series. I think it would go to 7 no matter who has the home court advantage, and I'm still gonna take the Thunder. Uh, but yeah, this will be competitive because these teams are very similar. They both have MVP caliber players. They both have very defensive minded guards. They have uh, an elite stretch five. They both have decent benches. They're very similar, so it could go either way. But I agree. I'm going with the Thunder. Maybe not the right choice, but it's the choice I'm going with and that you're going with. So let's hope that that happens. But I guess we are done here. Those are all of our predictions. This was a long episode, but honestly, I had a lot of fun recording this, doing
Me
the
too.
W and L list, doing the predictions. Uh, Again, went a lot longer than I thought it was gonna be, but it was fun.
Definitely, yeah. It was a fun episode. A lot longer than we thought, but we covered a lot of ground, a lot of cool, interesting topics. Making the predictions are always fun, and at the end of the day, um, always a good time talking hoops for sure.
Especially since hoops are back, baby, and we have a lot more games to talk about throughout the season. So make sure you are tuned in, you are subscribed to the YouTube, you are following on podcast platforms like uh, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. Follow the social medias because I'm probably gonna make some clips on the YouTube or maybe even some TikToks on some of our predictions. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, go do that. Anything you want to say before we head out?
Yeah, pretty much just mirroring what Memo said. Thank you guys, as per usual, for the constant support to our channel. We greatly appreciate it. Um, if you guys like our content, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share. Um, Now we are in the NBA season, so it's pretty much going to be weekly overviews of what's going on each week. Um, Key headlines for games, W list, L list, news, you name it. But nonetheless, we are also going to find ways to add in special twists where appropriate, and it'll be fun for sure. So make sure you guys stay tuned there. Um, Follow us on all of our different platforms, and it will be fun because the season is just getting started.
That's for sure. But yeah, I hope you all take care and we'll see you all next week. Bye bye.